from Abuelos de Jalisco, from the Michoacan, and from Tula. All three have had depictions of this.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Monsters Lounge. I'm Jeni.
And I'm Tressa.
That intro gets me every single time.
I know, you mentioned that every single time.
I know. You're welcome, everyone. That's the show.
See you later.
Listen, we are going to be talking about some wild stuff tonight, and I'm very excited because it deals with an area that I am very, very much in love with, which is Mexico, Central America, and a little bit of South America. It's my favorite. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that before or not.
A couple times.
Maybe. Yeah, it's a place that I will be visiting very soon, less than a month now. So I'm super excited about that. Very excited about our guest because I know hardly anything about his particular subject, and I'm fascinated. Right?
As you should be.
Yeah, as I should be. So we have Michael Forrest on tonight. I know.
Give us that sweet bio, Jeni.
I'm doing it, man. If you'd shush. All right. Inspired by skepticism and doubt, Michael Forrest embarked on a journey that uncovered suggested evidence of a lost civilization in Mesoamerica. This discovery sparked a series of books that challenge our understanding of history. He has meticulously documented a movement that continuously eludes the spotlight, often due to the lack of rigorous scientific investigation in Mesoamerica. His lifelong fascination with rocks and carvings led him to examine pristine specimens and unique techniques that demanded closer scrutiny. This curiosity and dedication culminated in the creation of aliencarvings.com and his three books, Tula, Mexico, The Lost Civilization, Abuelos de Jalisco, Mexico, The Lost Civilization, and we knew I was going to not pronounce something at some point. Anunnaki, The Alien Atlantis.
Anunnaki.
Let's just say it until one of us.
Yeah, I know how to say it, and you messed it up in my brain.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Mesoamerican connection. The Alien Atlantis Mesoamerican connection, and they've gained a lot of curiosity over the last 5 years. The thousands of macro photos and details Forrest presents hopes to encourage a closer look at the language, cosmological maps, and other details being uncovered. So please help me welcome Michael.
Hi, Michael.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good.
Okay, for anybody who is listening to us right now, Michael has a vast collection of things behind him, and they all look tremendously interesting. And this is all part of that. We're not going to talk about it though, because that's it. It's just for us to see, not you. Are these all artifacts that you've collected?
Yeah, absolutely. Writing my books, I've documented close to 5,000 pieces now, and
5,000.
That's just that I've personally photoed and handled. And as far as actual documentation on our website, we have over 20,000 items that have been documented from Mexico specifically regarding this topic from 7 different states. also. It's not just Tula or Huelos, even though those are the ones that are, predominantly putting out a lot of pieces. It's pretty wild. We found these in Honduras and Peru and different places like that as well, which is that's the part that, it's making me think it's something more, complete Mesoamerica, and there's stuff in the rainforest that they're just now finding that really opens up a big landscape in terms that we haven't really even touched. There's so much in that rainforest that's buried or swallowed by the jungle that you can't even get to. That they're now starting to see. They're the largest, building encampments and civilizations that we know. So we got a lot to uncover.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
The jungles can just eat up a full little town in 3 years.
And they're using the LiDAR technology to sort of peel away and look. Anytime I've been to a ruin down in Belize or Guatemala, that's something that's heavily, stated by all of the guides is this is just a tiny little bit, every hill that you see, look around you, there's artifacts underneath there.
Yep.
So these are a lot of carvings, right? That represent what we might consider extraterrestrial. So are they actually carvings of the extraterrestrial dudes?
Yeah. There's a lot of question and speculation to what exactly they were used for. If you go back into ancient texts, specifically something like the Bible, you'll find that there was the story of Babel and this tower that was being built, and that there was a lot of controversy around it and what it meant. But the interesting thing there is we have a culmination of civilizations that are being depicted on these pieces. It's not just stuff that looks like the Anunnaki. It's not just stuff that looks like the pharaohs and Horus and stuff from Egypt. It's not just stuff that we would think of as ETs, which is an interesting thing. So you ask a Mayan and you show them a picture of a gray and you ask them, have you ever seen the alien before? And they won't know the word alien, but they absolutely have a name for it. And they have a lot of history about it, which is interesting just from so I think there's something there in terms of this culture, obviously, and how it connects back to things, possibly in that, biblical scale of that, they say that they've made stone idols in worshiping their gods with an S is how it's pronounced. So it's not just God, it's gods, which is kind of like Egypt. They've got a lot of gods and certain things. Before monotheism happened, there was a lot of different cultures that believed in a lot of different gods. And so it's interesting to see that with all these different beings on here working together. It seems like there's pictures of these beings around surgical tables with DNA symbols and vats and different humanoid animals / combination hybrid. I mean, it's stuff straight out of what you would see in sci-fi or a fairy tale type situation. I mean, honestly, that's why I was so skeptical. It just didn't. It didn't seem like that was going to be so in our face if we were ever to find something of this nature, and the fact that it's in such illustrations at this point now, it's deep.
Right.
Yeah.
Listen, with the hearings in November, it made me think about the Nazca Mumbis, because there's the civilization, quote unquote, who knows what it is, that's coming out of the oceans. And they could have been, he was asked, Elizondo was asked, how long have these beings been under the ocean? And he's like, thousands, millions of years. No one has any idea.
That's where they came from originally. That's where we came from.
Right. And I feel
that's
like
what the Anunnaki believe.
Right. I feel like it's not so much extraterrestrial, but aquatic. I don't, for lack of a better word, it's part of this planet. It's going through the DNA evidence
that are on here. You can see here. I'll show you an example. Wow. But there we go. It looks like an angel almost, but it's got a tail, like a wispy tail, and it's actually what we've understood now is it's a serpent. So these are serpents, and in many cases they're displayed with mermaid tails or aquatic type things. I can show you some examples here. Let me see if I can get this to
Yeah.
flip around here. One of these things.
Well, while you're doing that,
Oh, there we go. Oops.
so are we finding this across like all Mesoamerican cultures, like Toltec, Inca, Mayan, Aztec?
Yep. And I mean, you see it through Bolivia and Peru and Chile, Ecuador, Colombia.
Okay,
You can see his fin down here is obviously a split, almost like a mermaid tail. And he's got a tail, and he's holding a trident. And you can see this weird beard type appendage hanging on his face. That's the thing that we're on many of these pieces, and find it actually goes and connects to Egypt. You can see this one here, his beard area has a garment, or it looks like clothes woven around that part of his face.
Right.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and so what's interesting about that is in Egypt, they have the pharaohs, and they'll even King Tut's death mask, if you can envision it in your head, and he's got a beard.
Right.
He's got this beard that's all braided, right?
Right. And usually jeweled with something.
Yeah.
But that wasn't a very
15-year-old have this beard.
And that wasn't a very common thing for kings or princes to wear in a lot of the Mesoamerican cultures. So having something that transposed over to there, right?
This is what they look like without the garment on, or without it braided.
Oh, those are what we're seeing right now is a extensive carving that has what appears to be almost tentacle like appendages.
This is a skull
down from the what's that a skull of?
Yeah, what kind of skull?
We don't know. Scott's been doing Scott Walter's been doing some research. I gave him one of these a couple of years ago, and getting any real science on it in terms of DNA and stuff like that is really expensive and really tricky. And
imagine.
But seeing that type of connection to the pharaohs, and so I looked into why does the pharaoh strap this on, and what's the purpose of this? And believe it or not, they believed that they came from this place called Kemet, which existed before Egypt, and that's where they're paying homage to the creators from Kemet. And so we think that what we may have found is possibly Kemet.
Oh, wow.
Or something of that nature that had advanced knowledge of Kemet in terms of what we believe. Because if you look into the Dogon people of Africa, they were exiled out of Egypt before they moved to the west side of Africa there in Mali. And the Dogon people have some really extensive cosmological understandings and things that you can spend a whole hour talking about, but the short one is that they were obviously outskirted from Egypt, and they believe in these things called the Nomo that came out of the sea. And that's where I was going with this is that they believe that the Nomo came out of the sea, and that there was this Ana character, and then the Anunnaki believe similar things, and they have a character named Anu, which is their most high. And so it's really something that starts connecting to multiple cultures. And you start looking in Mesoamerica with Viracocha and Quetzalcoatl, and I haven't found any Viracocha symbolization or anything of that reference, but the feathered serpent is everywhere on these pieces.
Yeah. Now I have a question about that because now you said the Nobu, right? The
Nomu, yeah, it's Nomm.
Yeah, I'm terrible at pronunciation.
Yeah,
so yeah, also memory. But that sounds a lot like Naga, right?
Exactly. And I think that's a very good analyzation of being connected together.
Okay. Yeah. And then
what's that,
Jeni?
Guys, what's Nagu? Or what's that?
Naga is like an undersea being, like a cryptid sort of thing where yeah, very, very similar to like mermaid siren-y.
And you find this mostly in India and in the Hindu culture. And that's an interesting compilation also, because if you think of to the Hindu culture, they have a trunked being. And you hear about this trunk. It almost looks like an elephant trunk. But what if it's actually the braided tentacles or the garment that these things are wearing? And so to see that as well. And also the, these beings from ancient Egypt with the different color skin, the green and the blue and that sort of thing, I think were we're seeing that type of representation in terms of that there's detailed depictions of lizard type beings, or reptilian type beings that are humanoid, all over these pieces.
Well, it's interesting. That immediately makes me think of like H.P. Lovecraft, right?
Yeah,
When we
it's
start
Cthulhu.
talking, yeah, either Cthulhu, like with the tentacles, or like there was a whole, Innsmouth kind of like the people coming out of the sea. There was a whole other civilization that he wrote about, which is just, it's so crazy how all of that stuff intertwines.
It really is a movie. Like there's so many of them you could go and like the Matrix and the Terminator and all these different things. I mean, it's scary to think about how accurate. We find watches that have sundials on them from down here, and you see those Anunnaki carvings on the Iraqi walls with the big winged Anunnaki beings, and they have that wristwatch on there, and likely it's a sundial for telling time.
Yeah. It's just so insane and so wild. So the people's, okay, so we know that the pharaohs in Egypt had those sort of chin guys. It's the best thing that I could say. I could say beards or tentacles.
It's fine.
Chins,
Chin
also,
guy.
I'm apparently signing this now in my own special language. And so this was found over in Mesoamerica as well, right? Like the chin guys.
I don't think so in terms of like I don't like in the museums there with King Pakal or anything of that nature. None of them have that depicted that I found. However, we find both
Really
from
hoping I was
Abuelos,
onto something.
well, from Abuelos de Jalisco, from the Micocán, and from Tula. All three have had depictions of this that we found, and so. In one of my books, the newest one, Anunnaki America, there's an interview from it's an elder of the Toltec tribe that resides in Tula, and he's owned this land for, it's been in his family for 300 plus years. They've grown corn on it primarily and potatoes, and when they till their fields, they would find archaeological specimens. The back of their field has a concrete fence. It's an 8-foot fence, and on the other side of it is the World Heritage Site of Tula B. And so they turned in a lot of pieces over the years, and that's how this whole thing kind of came about, where he was wronged. Essentially, he wanted to take his grandchildren in to show the pieces that they've turned in off the property because they didn't believe it. When the kids saw what it was, and they knew because of the internet that aliens and angels, they went crazy. So Grandpa tries to take them into the INAH, show them what they had turned in. And they treated him like that they didn't even know him, and they refused to say anything. And he'd worked for the INAH for 6 years. He had done all kinds of documented digs, and so he really took it as a thorn and a disgrace to his heritage. And so he, at that point, contacted with Steve Quayle of Gen 6 Productions. They did a full documentary and documented a lot of pieces. And they didn't have enough time to really get deep enough because once they hit there's a ground floor in there. And so to penetrate that and to get below that, it's taken significant effort. They've gotten down to about the 16 or 18-foot level where an additional ground floor is at this point. And there's petroglyphs of aliens and caves and dwellings with all these pieces in there. And so it's really something else. He's definitely given them the bird by doing this and documenting this because it's hard to refute at this point. That's what was the nail in the coffin for me to become from a skeptic to a bringing awareness about it.
Right? Yeah, I would assume so.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's
even the maybe
really
1%. Like if I missed the 1% here and I died and realized that I should have done that, whoops! I mean, I would feel like I really dropped the ball if I didn't take the chance.
Yeah. Well, how horrible for this man to have this legacy and just been like, no, I don't know who you are. That's terrible.
And that's the story of the conquistadors and the tribes down there. I mean, literally their books and everything that they had was forced to be orally transmitted and destroyed and gotten rid of because of paganism and the Crusades. And so, that's an interesting point too, is you see obviously these angelic type looking beings, and we have the story of the fallen angels and Enoch and things that hit home on a lot of these depictions pretty hard. And so maybe this is the pagan roots, and maybe they did do what they did to try to depress something that had gotten really evil and really bad. I don't know, but I always take both sides of the sword as a, there's a reason for everything, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Not always a great reason, but yeah, always a reason.
Never always a great reason. Yeah.
You know what? We'll talk about more of these reasons right after this.
For those of you naysayers, I want you to know how much I appreciate how many of you grabbed a hold of my small package after last week's show. It is out and available. You can get both of my books, The Other Side, A Guide to the Paranormal and Ghost Hunting, and my brand new book, Theater of the Mind, Tales from the Darkness. Both books are out. One, of course, kind of a how-to ghost hunt book, and the other story book of strange supernatural occurrences all around the world. You can get your hand on my small package by just ordering it right off of my website. You can go right to paranormal60.com, scroll down on the front page there, or go to the shop and scroll down and you'll see our book bundle. And I was so humbled by the fact of how many men put their hands on my small package at the end of last week's show and bought it. It was great. It made me feel loved and wanted. I'm not going to lie.
All right, so this is going to sound like it's a stupid question, because it probably is. But what happened to the people? Like, where did they go?
So as far as, are you talking about the alien beings, the things that look of that nature? So it depends on which story you're reading. And so on a geological level, what we're finding is evidence of either a massive volcanic cataclysm or a massive flood that hit this turntable, because obviously where this is, it's about an hour and a half north of Mexico City. So it's not that far from the coastline. So it could have been something of, what the Younger Dryas era. It seems like a lot of the dates are revolving in that 10 to 14,000 year range, as many as 18,000. But that seems to be a commonality. And so this tunnel that was uncovered on that property, there's a block that's literally like sitting cockeyed in the ground, trapped there. It's a huge quarried stone that's probably 10 tons. And it's just trapped above this thing with nothing else around it other than dirt holding it. So someone would literally have had to have had a crane. I mean, it's just the effort in that, and like also the fact that we found these ground floors. No one that's going to try to pull a hoax, in my opinion, is going to build ground floors as well as quarried stone. This is serious effort we're talking about. It's taken these guys a year and a half to completely excavate this tunnel. I mean,
right, the amount of
hours,
they weren't really doing like a lot of the ancient prankster homes, like this will really fool the future.
Bingo.
Right, it's with the Nazca mummies. They have proven that they are like organic. They are as intricate organs inside these mummies. There's no way it could be I don't know how many thousands of years hoax. How is that even an outcome that you would come up with as a skeptic? It's not that they didn't have the technology, because who knows, maybe they did, if they can make those intricate stoneworks, but why?
Those mummies are real, and they're in a very, very similar, it's connected to what we have. In fact, we actually found a preserved remain of a body. Dr. Pablo Garcia Sanchez is the one who has possession of it currently and is researching it, but it's been fully, spectroscopied and x-rayed in many different ways. And just like the Nazca mummies, to the point where this is obviously legitimate, and all these tendons and all these things. The thing is that there was some fake ones. We had actually purchased. I had been offered a couple Nazca mummies, and we purchased them, and they were seized at DHL. This was shortly after the Congress, and they dressed them up like little dolls. And so they've used these two as a reference. They claim them to be fake. There's x-rays from the DHL, and they show how it was put together. And I believe that these two dolls might have been fake. I think they might have been trying to sell us fake ones.
Okay.
To get the $10,000 a piece that we paid for them.
Yeah.
And right. So we were just trying to understand it. They came out with the Congress and said that it was BS. And my business partner said, I want one of these. Let's make it happen. And I knew the right people to make that happen. And well, it was either the right or the wrong, but it was a really important precedence on Jaime Mossam's lawsuit that he's suing the Peruvian government for $350 million right now over this, because they defamed him. And they're going off of these two bodies that were seized and saying that all of them are fraudulent because of it. And what's the problem is they're not willing to go out to the land where they were found. The government refuses to go out there and verify it. They refuse to take them in until just recently, finally, just recently, they brought in the mummies that were given to them to do more research. But the amount of resistance on this topic, as you've
That
seen
kind
in
of
the media,
scares me.
it's very scary. It's all tied together, you know.
Like the fact that they own, like if they have the mummies, I don't know that I trust what they would do with them, is what I'm saying. That's what scares me. The
Luckily,
government.
Jaime Bossam's team has so many, and there's been so many tests done, and now that team has also, as well as others working close to it, have gotten these. There's mummies in Japan, there's mummies in France, there's mummies in Italy, and so this is definitely out there now, and it will be researched, and it will come to the surface. But it's just like anything, you know. Jaime Bossam's team has done DNA and all these other tests, and it's still not good enough. It's still not good enough to make it on 60 Minutes.
Yeah, I know. It's insane. It's the evidence is like undeniable that this is not fully.
I've smelled them. It's real. I'm telling you.
So
like
good.
There's no question.
It's so fascinating. Like we could learn so much about just the planet in general, just if we would just open up this information. And it's crazy. But listen, my question is about the fakes. Were they dated? Like, are they just effigies that they knew were fake and they weren't trying to pull anything over, or was it people just trying to make money? Because that's
the best question that could be asked, in my opinion. You hit it on the head, because and an archaeologist actually brought this up just recently. He said, okay, well, if the mummies are real and we found some that were constructed, they could have been constructed thousands of years ago also by the indigenous people and that's why wouldn't we find something like that possibly? So the fact that it hasn't been carbon dated is a downfall of our, you know, environmental, of our educational system right now, because it's just that the fact that you can't just go and get these dates done. Even if I had a stack of $100 bills, 100,000 deep in my pocket, I can't just walk into a university and have carbon dating done. They refuse to touch it. They refuse to do anything outside of a certain spectrum because they're federally funded, and they'll lose their federal funding if they don't follow the federal rules. And that means no testing for anything that's outside of a scope of chain of command. You know, if something's been extracted out of the ground by a grave robber, don't test that, because you're going to fuel that industry by verifying their piece is legitimate so they can sell it for more, and then they're going to go dig more out of the ground illegally. That's the mentality there, and I understand it and I agree with it. However, when they're not willing to go to the site and verify something and spend our tax dollars on the archaeology that we should be demanding, now I've got a serious chip on my shoulder, you know?
Yeah, as you should.
All right. So in the depictions, they were working with the indigenous peoples, right?
I believe so.
What sort of thing were they providing?
Technology, resources, farming, agriculture. You know, Enki's the god of corn. We believe Enki could be the Quetzalcoatl or the feathered serpent in this case. And that story might run in conjunction, and why things over here are positioned in the way they are towards the feathered serpent, why the Aztecs and the Mayans both have the feathered serpent in their beliefs, even though they're completely not connected together. Certain things of that nature, I think, has spread beyond culture at this point, and we have to look at that as a real logical concept. If you look at the Hopi, the Lakota specifically, with their star people and what they believe in, and the many different Native American tribes that have this type of belief as well, there's obviously something that came through that taught a lot of people a lot of different things, especially with corn and agriculture here in North America. And we see that really heavily with I mean, even our pilgrims that landed here. That was that's the main thing on the cornucopias and the Thanksgiving table. You know, it was a big deal. So they learned a lot, and it's genetically provided us with so much.
Did they do it out of just, hey, stop being stupid, here's some gifts of knowledge, or did they get something in return? Do you know?
I mean, purely speculation. If you look at the story of the Anunnakis, like the Enuma Elish and stuff, I think that, you know, there were some that had trickster type mentalities, and some that were all about order and justice, and some that were all about war and reproduction. And So I think there was things that people took passion in, just like, if I would be a doctor or a lawyer, and you got to think on, this is a God or a level above us in terms of, this is a light being, or maybe in our current form as we're physical beings, but these beings might not have time restraints and lives to live as in terms of we do. So what they might be doing is balancing the light to create action and reaction. Without chaos, you can't have order. Without the threat of death, there's no reason to live. And so to be a God, you have to balance the lights. And we see the scales on so many of these pieces depicted and carved in. And you see it in Egypt too, with Anubis and the scales.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's a logical understanding that these beings had to create balance in order for the universe to be orchestrated in the fashion that it is.
So when we're seeing all of these depictions of the variety of gods, and there's so many, is that what we're seeing? Are these ancient peoples, these ancient aliens, is that what they are? And do you know what I mean? Like, the coyote, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trickster god. Like, was that actually, if we look at it, an ancient alien?
Yeah, and what are the ancient aliens, and where did they come from? And if they are this reptilian being from the sea, then you got to look at different ancient tales with these beings like Dagon or Tiamat and Apsu. Tiamat and Apsu emerged from the waters. Even Adam and Eve emerged from the waters, which is interesting. They also had a purple bluish glow about them when they came out of the waters, and so that was why they put clothes on. And it's interesting that it's a purplish blue glow depicted in the Bible, or spoke in the Bible word for word. That's a really interesting concept to me, because these pieces that we have, I'll show you here with a black light. I can show you just an example here real quick, but these things all have a luminescence to them, right?
Yeah, it's like green. It's a green sort of shine.
Yeah, and I'll turn the lights off because it's much more spectacular with that. But this is just a black light. So the question is okay, well, if this is 10,000 years old, how on earth would they have known that it glowed? Why would they take all that time to put it into the cracks and crevices to make it look perfect if there wasn't a reason and they couldn't see it? The sun going down takes too long for this half-life. It's about a 4 to 6 second half-life. So without a charge of light, there would be no way. But what's interesting is all these beings have wings, right? And angels have wings. And you look into Greek and the cherubim and all these different types of angels and stuff that supposedly existed. It's definitely plausible that they had halos about them. And if there was a halo with an ultraviolet light of the holy beings, and Adam and Eve were made from the holy beings, and so they had a slight glow to them, and that trickled down. And technically, we're still luminescent today. Like if you look through an infrared camera at us, we're bright red. Like we're radiating energy and light essentially, one way or another. And so it's interesting to think that's the only logical explanation that I can think of, is because in the Bible, that story of Babel there, where it talks about them worshiping their gods with stone idols, the gods may have came to town or came around, and when they did, these objects illuminated, and it was a grand sight to see, and the people were just awe because they knew that was a special being right there, and that's the only logical explanation, because the amount of man hours to do this is way more than I paid for. I promise you that much.
Yeah.
So your theory is that they painted these things. Well, I'm putting this on you. I'm not saying this is your theory, but please correct me. They painted these things with this bioluminescent or whatever paint, and they would only glow when these other beings would show up and be like, "Oh, those are the guys."
Yeah, if you were one of the fallen angels or one of the ones that came here, because so in the story is, Satan pushed the red dragon, and the fact that they say red dragon in the Bible is a big sore thumb to me, because that's a pretty awesome depiction of something. To call it this beast that many years ago, and the fact that the Anunnaki believed that their creator was the primordial dragon, and that they emerged from the sea and all these things. So it's an odd connection at best. And then you look into China and their core beliefs before the uprising of communism over there. But the Yellow Emperor was their a guy that came on a dragon and provided them with all these things, same things like agriculture and all these type of technologies of weapons and armor and many different things were provided by these beings. So I have a feeling that there's something to that. And you go from culture to culture, and there's Viracocha and Quetzalcoatl, all these different names. And in the Bible, it says that God has many names, right? And so if these people were imitating God, then why wouldn't they take different forms and say that they were different names to different tribes to maybe garnish different results? I mean, if you have endless time on your hands and you have a science experiment at this level going on with genetics, I cultivate cannabis for a living. That's my primary job. And so I can relate this only on that level, is with all the different genetics and flavors and maintaining and trying to make better and doing these things as a caretaker of the garden. The Garden of Eden could very well be this type of experiment,
Oh, we failed. I'm sorry, guys.
I have a couple of questions on that note. All right, so one of the things that I always think about, and this is, because I'm usually generally middle of the road. Like, I want to believe, and then there's stuff that I'm like, I don't know, man. So
same.
Yeah, right. So
Sure.
in the only culture that I'm at all familiar with is the Mayan culture, right? Just because of the trips, the people that I've met, etc. Anyway, is it undercutting their development as a culture to say, that a lot of these advancements that they made were due to somebody else coming in and teaching them how?
They don't take credit for it. Like the pyramids, they don't take credit for building those. They claim that they were here when they got there.
Right. I don't know much about like the Egyptian,
Yeah.
but I do know.
So on the Egyptian side of it, it's different. There are certain things that have been found that do show the construction of things with certain aspects. It doesn't show the pyramids specifically. It shows them like moving statues and large blocks.
Yeah.
So we know, there was definitely that type of construction and civilization, but yeah, it's very bizarre. Inside the Great Pyramid, obviously there's this one chamber that's made of pure granite, and it's all one piece, and it's lifted up to a point where, I mean, it makes, so there's that type of even the foundation for the pyramids, even Einstein and all the greatest minds that we've ever birthed in the last 2,000 years could not figure out the mathematics to recreate the foundation for the pyramid, let alone the pyramid itself. I mean, building, that's a whole nother story, but just the foundation. And that to me is, even with all the supercomputers and AIs and all these things that we have, we still don't have a definitive way of making that happen with what we have.
Right. Outside of the pyramid, because again, I'm not super familiar with like Egyptian culture whatsoever. The only one that I'm familiar with is the Mayan, and I know that there's been some credit given to ancient aliens as far as like the agriculture stuff, right? Just based on like the longevity of a civilization and how much time and effort and energy they would put specific families, specific groups of people towards developing these advancements. Like, I guess I'm asking, like, what shows us that these are the things that were given to us by something else?
I mean, on a archaeological front, I would say that this would be seen in terms of the teeth and the certain things in the funerary areas where we would find bodies and different ways to see in the genetic table that obviously, they got corn and certain types of advancements here. That on the scientific level, I'm sure would paint some picture.
Right.
What they have of that available and accessible to us, I don't know. I really don't, as far as to prove that, other than, obviously the depiction of corn and how they respected that on a royal or on a very spiritual level.
Okay,
Same with
I
the bull.
gotcha.
There's certain things that definitely go hand in hand with Egypt, I guess we could say.
Oh, all right. Very cool. That was my
Yeah,
big question. Just because I'm always curious, right? Because
yeah,
again, I
me
want to
too.
believe,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't religious at all. So for me to sit here and tell you guys about the Bible is like a big left turn for me, on a theology level, as well as just I never envisioned understanding or having to learn it in that fashion. But because of these pieces and what I found, I chased it, and so I couldn't argue that this is a massive compendium of history that's been toted around by people for a long time and respected at a level that I don't think any other publication is on this planet. So there has to be information in this publication that's valuable, and so I went at it in this perspective when I started dissecting it. And I'm telling you what, rereading it after doing the research that I had on this other ancient cultures was actually, it made so much more sense to me. It was really a gratifying experience. And I wouldn't consider myself religious today, but at the same point, like aliens and religion kind of fell in the same category for me as did I believe in this or not?
Yeah.
And you know, as a kid, I believed in Santa really hard, and my parents told me that was fake. And beyond that, I never really took the dive into the water because it just didn't. I'm not going to put myself into that situation again, obviously. Um, and then you look why we have Santa today, and that's a whole nother story.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of the same story, though.
Mhm.
I feel like the
It's wild.
people that dive into the Bible after being having it forced down their throats as children, and like I mean, I know the stories. It's fine. I don't need it. And then like, well, actually, well, what? Let's just take a look and see what's going on in there. Root through the history end of it and the just
Mhm.
the verbiage. Those people know the Bible so much better than the people that are in church every Sunday. And
Yeah.
maybe there's some really great people that are on church every Sunday and know the Bible like the back of their hands. But I feel like the people that really know it are looking at it with a different lens. And I think
agree.
that's so much more fascinating.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I think
the
that's why
information's been really hard to get.
Yeah.
You had to go to church, and you had to bribe your priest or pastor to give you the true sermon. I mean, he could only give you so much each week, and
Mhm.
so really it was something of control, and they had a valve on this amount of knowledge that people were able to obtain. There's stories in the apocryphal text, for instance, all these books that didn't make the Bible but are still biblical texts, you know, like Enoch and things. And I mean, really, if you want to understand the whole thing, you have to go through these books and really get deep with it. And like, you know, there's the Freemasons and the Knights Templar there, and Scott Walter did a presentation on this cruise that we went on at Contact at Sea. And he talked about this document that they found. It's called the Cremona Documents, and it had all this literature about. It's this book of wars. It's like missing from the Bible, and we don't have a copy of it. But the Templar were like holding it against the church as like leverage, and so it was really interesting to read his translations from this and seeing that they talk about Anunnaki by name, and they talk about these different things in the Bible that I'm just like, holy cow, it talks about Yahweh being a dual gendered Godhead. And that's something of me that's been a real fascination, is why the feminine aspect in Christianity has been dismissed. And, you know, you go back to Eve with the apple, and that's not a good enough story for the type of suppression that we're seeing here. There's got to be more to this that they're keeping from us. And if you look into the story of you know, Mary, or the Gospel of Mary, then there's also something called the Pistis Sophia, which is a Gnostic text, and it really sums it up well, in my opinion, and gave me a whole nother perspective on the whole thing.
Yeah. Listen, the hidden text, the lost text, the text that no one wants to release because it has a whole lot of information. Give us.
Yeah.
We want that. Hey, you know what else we want?
Oh, hey, Tressa. Jeni? Oh, I'm just reading my book by international TV sensation, Dave Schrader. I'm reading the book, too. I don't remember the name of it, or... who wrote it, but yeah. There, I like your shirt. I got it on monstersloungepodcast.com. You've got a great shirt too. Oh, that's so weird. I got it at monstersloungepodcast.com too. They have really great stuff. A full variety. I know, right? They have everything. Shirts. Tote bags. Clutches. A phone case, I think. It's the best.
Ooh.
Oh, you guys, if you're not watching this, go to YouTube and watch the live stream because it's great. You're
Yeah, it
missing all
really
these
is.
artifacts.
There's gorgeous artifacts, and Michael is shining some light on them to give us what they look like in the dark, and they're fascinating. It is that blue-green luminescence color. For sure.
Okay, did we lose your audio?
We might have lost your audio there.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, there you
Oh,
are.
there we go.
Yay! Oh, I must have
Yay.
fat fingered it. I apologize, guys. I switched the
Yeah.
camera around here.
No worries.
Can
You're
you
on
show us
Yeah.
again and
Yes.
explain what we're looking at?
Yeah, not just Christmas lights. Yeah, these are just some of the pieces, but you can see, like this one, for instance, turns blue after.
And we lost.
Uh-oh. It's coming back to us. I
So,
hope so.
wow, look at those. I mean, what'd you think of those crazy artifacts, Jenny?
Those were gorgeous. This is a whole fascinating subject, and I need to read up more on anything having to do with Egypt because I know apparently zero
What
about
do you
it.
know? What do you know about? Oh, hey, he's still not there. Oh, there you are.
I don't
There
know.
he
Kicked
is.
me out. Asked for my feet. I don't want to do that. Yeah,
Asked for
about that,
feet?
guys.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
these artifacts that we're looking at all have this gorgeous, bioluminescence to it after a flashlight is sort of
Blacklight.
blacklight.
Yep.
Oh, and they remain glowing after
Yeah,
they
they
get the
do.
blacklight on. That's
Yeah.
so wild.
Wow. That
Do
is
we know
incredible.
what the bioluminescent paint or whatever it is?
Well,
made
you know
of?
the
there's
chemical makeup?
multiple variations. I'll show you one of the raw stones here. This piece of stone is
Mhm.
actually what they crushed up to put in there. We found a whole entire ground floor of this in one of the caves. So we believe that's, it's obviously the same half-life, the same brightness, everything about it.
Yeah.
And
Do we know what
but like
that
this-
is?
yeah, it's a calcite of some
Okay.
form.
All right.
With a sandstone. There could be other things in there. As you can see, it's kind of only part of it is. I've actually got, I gave a piece to Scott and to a couple other people for examination to a gemologist, just because I'm not an expert
Oh,
there.
it's just beautiful. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
You
Tell me
see the
about it.
scales here.
It's very, very pretty.
And they're
it's
literally
glowing.
balancing the light. You can see these beings are.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They're just incredible carvings. I mean, obviously so detailed, but the painting is so cool. And I love that.
What am I looking at right now?
Yeah,
Because
what are we looking at?
This is a green banded calcite statue. So it has a red phosphorescence. When the light's turned off, it shoots back red at us.
yeah.
Oh, wow.
But like I say, all these pieces are thought of in this fashion to where, I mean, why else would they put this amount of effort into something?
Mhm.
And if it was dark, I could show it even a little bit more clearly in terms of, even pieces like this here. Oh yeah, you can see it just barely for a second here. But
Oh,
obviously at
those-
nighttime, it really lights up.
Wow. It's so intricate that it's blowing my mind a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it really is. I mean, the language, there's.
So we've talked a lot about the references in the Bible, right?
Mhm.
Are there other spiritual texts that from maybe different religions? Like, are you aware of any that highlight the same people, aliens?
A really big one. And it's huge. I think that's really an important here. I'm going to flip this back around. But the Zohar is a Hebrew text,
Okay.
and anything that's like Zoroastrian or Gnostic, like the Pistis Sophia, I find that a lot of these things are partially what was put out. So, like in the Crusades, you have like the Cathar people, and for over 100 years and 9 papal commands, these Cathar people were burned at the stake, man, woman, and child. No one was spared. And
Okay.
literally, the Cathar are extinct today because of this.
Oh.
And the Cathar accepted Jesus Christ as their savior. They weren't devil worshiping or worshiping a bunch of different things. They did, however, believe that there was 2 gods, and there was an evil god and a bad god, or a good god rather. And
Did they
I
also
find
have
that
Satan, like Christianity? Did they also have Satan?
yeah, they believed in the Bible fully.
Oh.
It's just that they believed that the Bible in the old, or that the God in the Old Testament was
Oh,
evil.
like Gnosticism, right?
Bingo, Gnostic, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's an interesting concept, because when you look at how the 3 religions are today, and how what they fight over constantly,
Right.
there's definitely something in that core foundation that's being argued over. And so that tells me that someone's not telling the truth somewhere,
Yeah, always.
Yeah. And back to the male female thing, that's a huge part of it. I believe that there's somewhere in there that we suppressed the female for a reason. And the Sophia in this Pistis Sophia, she was the wife of Jesus, essentially, or Jesus's mate in heaven. And she would share the throne with him, essentially, but she was taken with the tail of Satan with the 200 fallen angels. So there was 200 angels that fell with Satan in the Bible, and they weren't all bad. So she was one of those, and so I believe that she was the divine womb, and the one that they utilized to create a lot of the creations that we have in this world. Essentially, she was abused at one point. Or if you look into Isis or Ninhursag, specifically in the Anunnaki, that it's a tale. I mean, she supposedly created a breed of people called the Adamu, with a U at the end of it. Spent 750 years trial and erroring different combinations to create this species. And so when you look at what we're dealing with, and you see the stories of the Anunnaki, where they had the Ajiji that rebelled against them, and they were their slave species, essentially. I mean, we could be Ajiji 2.0, essentially, and that's why everything was wiped clean and a new start, because they couldn't have anything pop back up from the Ajiji times that would give us knowledge of who we really were or what we really were.
That checks out. Every part of that, yes.
And the crazy one here too is the Book of Giants, which is an apocryphal text, was found with the Dead Sea Scrolls, names Gilgamesh as one of the giants by name. And if you look at the Epic of Gilgamesh, it's basically the story of Noah. And so Noah, the reason he lived to be 1,000 years old could be because he was a Nephilim. Same with a lot of the early people in the Old Testament. And that might be what the divine intervention was, is getting rid of the Nephilim, getting everything set up and balanced to where we are today. And that might be why the Crusades occurred, and they suppressed this information. Even what I'm trying to give right now could be being suppressed, because it brings on a pagan outlook where people are like, oh, I want to worship this. I don't know exactly, but they've kept it from people, it seems like, for a long time, and there's hopefully a good reason behind that, I guess.
Well, knowledge is very dangerous when you give it to the masses. You don't want that. How will someone have power if the others have knowledge? That's crazy. Listen, we're coming up at... Go ahead.
Sorry. I was just going to say one thing, that the Nikola Tesla's work is really interesting, because it's such a matter of national secrecy, and they've kept this work that he found. And he supposedly created a wireless transmission for cars to run wirelessly, right? And so
Yeah.
what if he unlocked the same type of technology that the pyramids were meant to amplify? And it's a type of technology like his
Oh.
Wardenclyffe Tower would amplify, similar thing. And what if that's alchemy and magic in the old time? And so when they took the Ark of the Covenant and the Exodus out of the pyramid, that could have been what gave it power, what gave alchemy, what gave power to all these fallen. And they don't have that anymore because that's been removed. And that could be why there's no new creations or new hybridizations going on here, because they don't have the way to couplate the energy to make that happen. And I say that not on a conspiracy like weird term, but if you look at some of these artifacts, I mean, it clearly shows. Here's one right here. It clearly shows these pyramids being like utilized with different.
Right. I know the theory,
Yeah.
like a theory, is that the
Yeah.
pyramids were giant batteries.
Yeah. Yeah. So it could be, power out of thin air, which is what Tesla said he basically.
Right.
Right.
And that might be why it's security, because it could, someone that's evil could gather so much power with this technology. Might be something you can buy at Home Depot. So they really have to be careful with it.
Someone
Yeah.
evil, someone who doesn't want an electric bill, whatever.
Either way.
Fine. It's fine. We are at the end of our show, and I had a lovely time. And
Yes, so much.
Yeah,
Same.
so much more. You'll have to come
I'm
back.
going to read so much about Egypt.
Anytime.
I'm going to read so much
Do.
about Egypt.
But
I'm so
please
excited
plug
about this.
anything that you need to plug for us.
Yeah, just if you have any interest on this, check out our website, aliencarvings.com. You can search my name, Michael Forrest, on Amazon. All of our books are there. And got our 6th book coming out here in 2025. It's going to be a catalog. So I've literally taken every item in this room and then some, and I photographed it all, high res, 6-7 pictures of each with the glow. And it'll be an actual catalog that you can get. It's over 300 pages detailing all these items and what I know about them.
Is it a coffee table book? And if not, will you make it a
is.
coffee? Oh,
No, it is. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, I've always dreamed of this. When I was a little kid, 3 years old, I was in the bookstore with my mom, and I'd seen Indiana Jones, and that's what I wanted, was an Egypt book, and they didn't have it. There's no Smithsonian catalog. Doesn't exist. So I'm making it. Yeah.
There was like the
Yeah.
King Tut book you got at the exhibit in New York. It wasn't a coffee table book. I wanted the coffee table book.
Yeah.
Always
I have all
wanted
those
that so
DK,
bad.
big, huge, yep. Mm-hmm.
Thank
So
you
good.
so much for doing that for us. I'm going to buy this book. It's
Mhm. Me too.
Again,
on.
thank you so much for joining us.
It was such a delight. It really was.
Everybody else, don't forget to find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and the Paranormal 60 Network. Like, comment, subscribe, and check out our merch on our website, monstersloungepodcast.com. Send us an email or comment. We love hearing from people. So until next time, thanks for visiting the Monsters Lounge.